I do the official? Oh, if okay, we're on radio, then this is what it is. It's we're rolling. It's
Okay,
live.
okay, yeah, okay, that's it. This is the intro. Um, we had a conversation just now,
Mhm.
which was, I knew that there were so many inspirational moments and so many things. So with Warren,
Mhm.
and Warren comes from a totally different world than I come from. So from my personal reflection is that he comes from a world that is totally unfamiliar. It's the U.S. military,
Mhm.
U.S. government, um, in multiple different roles, but that's where he comes from. It's a
Yeah.
very different world. I don't know that world. Maybe a little bit as an outsider every now and then. Maybe there's been a project many years ago, maybe, but no, it's a completely different world.
Mhm.
And then he talks about these things that resonate with me completely. And we go, yeah, exactly. That's what I do. So to me, it was like, how did that work? Because if you, to me, being from a completely different world and obviously military, government,
Mhm.
all these rules, all that kind of, that system, um, and me coming from this kind of, you know, creative, entrepreneurial, design world,
Mhm.
you would think we have nothing in common, right? That'd be the first thing you think we would, this is going to be a very difficult conversation.
Mhm.
But no, it was the opposite. We could
Yeah.
have talked for many more hours because there were so many beautiful connections. And I really, and we ask people about, who they are and not about their job. The
Mhm.
first thing we ask people is, take away your job, your titles, everything. That's not interesting. Who are you?
Mhm.
And that was exactly what he would do. So he was
Yeah.
ready for it because that's what he asks when he teaches people and brings people together. So
Mhm.
again, it's right from the start. We were like, oh, and I was a bit surprised by it, but also his powerful storytelling was also interesting.
Yeah,
Where
he's an incredible
because
storyteller.
yeah, also that I was a bit like, oh, I, this could go on for. I don't have to say anything. Just keep talking, keep telling
Yeah,
this
it
story.
was all
Yeah,
interesting. Yeah.
yeah. Tell me more. It's fine.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh no, it's a podcast. We should ask a question. And good thing we did. But it's such a I don't know. I was in a movie. I was right
Mm,
from the first start. There was this movie, and it's like, wow, you know, he should write a book. This
yes.
should be, So that
Yeah.
was my takeaway.
Yeah. And I dare to say that I'm much more familiar with American military and American
Hmm.
government, having grown up both as an American citizen, but then also having friends in the military. Um, no, oh yeah, my grandfather was a veteran. Other family members were veterans. So you hear these family stories, also stories from friends. So I knew that I knew more about this military world or this,
Right.
government organizational world. But the thing that really amazed me about this conversation with Warren was A, how he was able to understand the system, but then also find new ways around outside of it. So he mentioned the word pirate at one point, that he's kind of like this pirate.
Yeah.
And I had this mental image of, maybe like the US government or the US military as a ship, right? And he's kind of
Uh-huh.
as this pirate on the outside and maybe like lobbing tomatoes or whatever he is. He's we need to fix this. We need to, address this. But he's doing it for the greater good of that organization and for the people within that. And that's not an easy role to take, as anyone who's been within a structure, been within a system, and has had a very minority voice in how that structure or system should change. I think anyone will be able to relate to, and be inspired by his story and how he told it. But the fact that he's been able to do this for so long is also next level stamina, because system change is not not easy. It's not all fun and games, and but he still has such a spark and he really came alive when he was telling us these stories about it. So you can,
Yeah.
yeah, you can really see that it lights him up. It's a
Yeah, absolutely. Um, yeah, I knocked over my microphone because I was so like, yes.
enthusiastic, yeah.
Uh, I yeah. So I don't want to spoil
No, me neither.
anything for people listening because it's just people should just listen to the story. I think.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But lots of great stories. And I think anybody, no matter what background or bubble they come from, will be inspired by this. So
Okay.
enjoy.
I'm a dad and a husband. We've got three daughters. We're just celebrating. We're coming up on our 31st anniversary. We're calling it our 30th just to be momentous about it. But
Congrats.
um, and so that's the most immediate thing. Do you mean in a work sense, a personal sense?
Any
No,
sense. Yeah. Just
any
the,
sense.
yeah.
Yeah. Um, and I'm reflecting, Arnie, on what you were saying. You're seeking stories about creative leadership, and so you've got me thinking about that a lot and reflecting on so many things, not just career, but family, and not just immediate family, like my father and my grandfather, who I'd never even met. And my father was quite a bit older than me when he had me. Um, so there's some stories there, and I'm trying to help you. I think I've identified a bit of a thread, but we can get to that when we're ready.
That's really cool. I see. Yeah, it's interesting how do you. This is going to be audio, so people won't see it. But I see you're thinking like you're seeing all the connections
Yeah,
emerge, which is really nice to see. It's very funny. Yeah, it's interesting how I think actually, if we talk about if we ask this kind of questions to people, so I haven't really looked into it. We were going to kind of look at all the different interviews in more detail, and actually hearing you start with family and to talk about family, I'm thinking, I think everyone started with family when we asked that question. Who are you? People say, either they are maybe their
yeah.
mother, their father, their sister, their brother.
Mhm.
It's about people. It's family. It's so interesting, right? That's the first thing you think of when you talk about
My
you.
my dad taught, so my father's Chinese, mother's Hungarian, and I was born on St. Patrick's Day, so I tell everybody I'm Irish. Uh, my father taught me that I guess it's a tradition in Chinese culture or Asian culture. When someone asks you where you're from, you actually don't tell them where you're actually from. You actually, out of respect, you tell them where your father's from. So very
Hmm.
patriarchal. And uh, but we were very much brought up here in America, in New York, in a very Western sense and all that. But I've recently been reflecting, actually, because of some conversations I've been having. I've been reflecting on uh, that past, and interestingly, like you guys are saying and doing, when I meet people, when I interview them, I ask them, tell me about your parents. Before we begin, tell me about your parents and your grandparents, which throws everybody off because we're about to, I don't know, have drinks or talk about
Yeah.
me or, the person right there.
Oh yeah,
And
that's
I
so
think it's
interesting.
very, it's enlightening to hear what and how people talk about that. So, so why don't we begin there? And there's something that came up recently I'll share with you that might help you be successful with what you're seeking. So let me string together three concepts: assassination, CIA front company, and witchcraft and black magic. That's my grandfather, my father, and me. My grandfather was assassinated by the Japanese when they rolled into Shanghai in what was it, the late 30s. And my father was studying in University of Michigan here in America on a grant to study. And he found out his father was assassinated when his professor showed him the New York Times obituary section.
Oh God.
And and it's because my grandfather had gone to law school in Japan and spoke, read, and wrote in Japanese and had Japanese contacts and friends and all that.
Mhm.
And so they wanted to set up a puppet government, and he was the judge in the French Quarter in Shanghai at the time. And so, long story short, they came to the front door, asked him to join them. He said no. So they assassinated him right there as he was getting into the rickshaw with my uncle, going
Yeah.
to work and, dropping him off at school. Okay, so fast forward, fathers in America, America goes to war, two men in with shaved heads and business suits show up saying, you have to we're all foreigners are leaving America. We need the money. We're going to war. So you need to go back and to your country and you can fight alongside us, in this case, against the Japanese. Or we have door number two. So my father chose door number two. So they put him on the back of a pickup truck, sent him to Parris Island, South Carolina, Marine Corps boot camp, which is where he learned English from a guy from Brooklyn and a guy from Oklahoma who ended up becoming my godfather.
Oh,
And he went through enlisted boot camp and then went through officer training, which is how he became a U.S. citizen, and ended up going back to China. And they set up operations so that the Marines, if they had to, cut Japan in half logistically in case the atomic bomb didn't work, etc. And he was in what was called G2 or intelligence, which is still a nomenclature we use in today's armed forces. Uh, G2 for the Army and the Marine Corps, or N2 for the Navy is the intelligence branch. So anyway, he does that, gets out, goes to Harvard Business School, meets my mother, they get married, they have my sister in Taiwan, and he was working in the Marine Corps Reserves and basically worked for what was called Western Enterprises Limited, which was a CIA front company. And the United States, would run U-2 spy planes along the coast of China. And we had a very top secret program where the U-2s would eject film canisters of very large format Kodak film out the back. And we had a whole system to capture these things like in the dead of night, and then they'd bring it back to Taiwan, process it, and be able to tell Washington like what's going on with Chinese movements and all that. And so I thought that was interesting. And then he ended up joining a small typewriter company called IBM, and then we settled down, and he had a family, and I was born. Um, so fast forward in the Sea of Japan on the USS Blue Ridge. It's the Navy's flagship of the Seventh Fleet, and my executive officer accused me of witchcraft and black magic for something I did with technology he didn't think was possible. And here's what I learned. And this is what I think, Arnie, we're getting to with what you're seeking about creative leaderships and stuff. Here's what I learned. It had nothing to do with technology, and it had everything to do with culture. He, what I realized was he felt scared, he felt threatened, and he was right, but so was I. And in the big picture of things that day, we failed America. We failed because we, as the Navy, didn't have the breadth or the vision or the ability to put in a sandbox or to try out some crazy young kids. I was just fresh out of the Naval Academy at the time. I was, I don't know, 23 or something. To try out a young person's crazy idea to help out the team. And we stood forward while the world moved, we stood still while the world moved forward. And because we failed to capitalize on it in any way. I'm not even saying my idea was the right way to go. And there's always a million caveats.
Mhm.
But the fact that he felt so threatened by it, and that was a huge career inflection point for me. And that is what opened up the door to me a few years later, going to the Naval Postgraduate School here in Monterey, California. Um, I was when I came back a second time, I was not as a student, I was on staff, and I I got called up to what was called the Center for Executive Education on top of our business school. You go there and the doors are closed, and it basically says for official entrance only. Like if you're not invited here, don't walk in. And it was super nice on the other side. Remember, these are government buildings, right? Cement block walls, not attractive or sexy in the least bit. And yet on the other side, it was carpeted. They had plants, nice furniture, and all that. Anyway, I met this silver-haired professor, and long story short, the next day I was shanghaied into the Center for Executive Education because of this story that I had told him that I just told you. And that opened my whole career up to executive education and ideas around provocative, disruptive discussions on leadership, yes, and technology, yes. But what it was really about is change management and talent management. That's what we found it really came down to. I was even at the time, I became the chief innovation officer, and we were really focused. This is the 2000 timeframe. We were really focused on innovation. Apple was really up and coming. We actually had the Apple chief talent officer, Dan Walker,
Mm.
down, who I became very close with. And we'd have speakers because we're only an hour and a half south of Silicon Valley. We'd have speakers come here. Plus, we'd get our admirals, generals, and senior executive service members, the civilians who run the military or and the whole federal government, on a bus, and we'd go up to visit Silicon Valley. And then in between, have these provocative, disruptive discussions and homework and readings. And it was like a very mini crash course MBA in 2 to 4 weeks for initially it was 3 to 4 star admirals, but we expanded it to 1 through 4 stars. We even went international. We had three-letter agencies, etc. And anyway, and so that was the career inflection point that opened myself up, and then through that, through executive education, I went through this transformation. I initially was into finance. I got my MBA as my first master's degree. Ended up getting a second master's in information technology, and I soon realized that the currency of this new century was not going to be about finance, but was going to be about technology. And then even after that, I realized it wasn't even about technology, it was about culture, and
Mhm.
which opened up my door to pull a thread common with you guys is design thinking and how might we, right? The three most important words,
Right.
how might we? And the other one that I've come to incorporate is yes and, right? Through polarity management.
Mhm.
And so we had leadership summits for the Navy, where it was an appreciative inquiry summit. I don't know if you guys are familiar with
Mhm.
appreciative
Yes.
inquiry.
Yep.
So we had a huge appreciative inquiry summit. We had multiple of them that to help the Navy rethink how it was going to proceed forward and develop itself. So anyway, so that's
That's an amazing story. I was thinking, did you already kind of sell the movie rights to this? Because otherwise, we have a contract here, and no,
right, right. You guys get a cut. Okay,
I conduct.
yes, no, but I
right.
mean, you obviously this is a story that is important to you, from your grandfather to your father to yourself, and there's an interesting sort of, I know the way you talk about it, it's almost like. I don't know what that is, but they're obviously different people, but you're almost talking about as if the years are the same people, they are you. So that's so interesting where I go like, okay, I know that it's not all you, but it is you because it's the strong family connection, but also there's something else I feel. Is that something that you recognize?
Me or Morgan?
No, you, Warren, that it's that this
As far as a
feeling
common
of.
thread,
Yeah, it's such an interesting
you tell me.
because
I'm
well, I'm
curious.
thinking about sort of my sort of if I think about my grandfather and my grandfather, from my mother's side, is he was an artist, and he's very present, literally, because I have still paintings here, literally
Mhm.
in my room. So he's very present, and through my mother, there's this great. So there's this lineage, this kind of this thing that is passed, in generations from generation to generation, And obviously, one thing obviously is the military, right? Which is
Mhm.
something that is a
Mhm.
Yeah.
common thread that you have,
Yep.
which is interesting as well. But can you? I'm interested in what you think. What are the things that you took from your parents? Not maybe not only your father or your grandfather, but what are the things that you took from your parents that led to the way you think now? Because it isn't so logical, or is it so? Maybe that's the question, that you end up with design thinking. And if you
Yeah.
look at your career, and it's not, to me at least, as a design. My background is creativity and design and art. It's not logical to have someone going through a military career to end up with
Right.
human-centric
Right.
design. So,
It's
which to
very
me is
countercultural.
so
Yeah.
well. Is it really? Because that's my question. Yeah, that's the question. Is it, or was that for you such a logical thing, or I mean, as an outsider from point of view, I could imagine that is. But I have been reading a lot of books from military men, by the way, who talk about amazing things about change management and all this. So I have some more
Sure.
information because of that. But in general,
Sure.
people would say, why would you? How did you end up with design?
Yeah. And I guess, I'm going to piggyback my question onto Arna's as well, because they're really similar, right? You said that you had just graduated, I think, Naval Academy and had this idea that prompted to you being accused of black magic and witchcraft, which is not a casual thing to be accused of.
Right. Right.
And I can also imagine as a young graduate, like you're doing this thing that you think, okay, this is really going to be helpful or useful. And then you get kind of blindsided by this accusation. So then, having this overall insight, like, okay, I now see the bigger picture and there's cultures really involved. So how did you go from this naval graduate with this exciting, perhaps too advanced idea at that moment, to then being as aware and big picture oriented? And I think it connects very closely with Arna's question as well. Like, what are you taking from your family, or what has led you to operate in this way?
Yeah. Great question. Um, I haven't thoroughly explored it, so I'll just speak freely or
Yeah.
postulate some ideas. Um, clearly, like you were mentioning, Arnie, there's a sense there's military service, although my grandfather wasn't in the military per se, but he was doing government service, right? So, and the common word there is service, right? Government service, military service. It's serving others or serving the greater good. And so, like everything in life, I think it's important to have a very clear set of values. Hopefully, those values are good values and ones of aspiration that other people would want or that society needs, not
Mhm.
something bad. Uh, so I think that's been a common thread. Uh, and the notion of doing what you feel is right, that's a big deal in the military, setting the right example, um, and having the courage, the bywords of the U.S. Navy, honor, courage, and commitment to stand by your convictions in this case, right? Um, the other thing I've learned, Morgan, to your question, is that has to do with my heritage, and again, maybe I'm just I'm it's entirely possible maybe I'm drawing on this too much, but we'll go there. I'm half Chinese and half Hungarian. I'm half Asian and half European. And I was born on St. Patrick's Day. Like, talk about, wildly diverse things landing in the same spot.
Yeah.
So I have to think that has somehow impacted me. And I think it has in the following way: this sense of balance.
Mm.
That's very much to me where the polarity management comes in, which is a very foundational thing I've learned, especially when it comes to things balancing stability and change and competition and collaboration. It's very difficult. It's never easy. Everyone, and that's the sense of true polarities, is that they're classic. It's not given a certain period of time or a certain industry or a sect of people. Every human being throughout history has had to deal with coping with stability and change, right? Do I honor my family's values, or do I do the newfangled thing at my work or whatever?
Mhm.
So I really enjoy and relish that. And, and being in that uncomfortable middle to help others, to help the larger team, organization, society cope with it, because it's super difficult. And the fact that I was born in this uh, position, I think, has helped me see that and be empathetic to appreciate
Hmm.
what it's like to go through that.
Mhm.
I was not in fact, I was not only not, I was the opposite of a military poster child. You know, I did not rise to a high rank. Um, I was the pirate, right? I was the one taking a lot of risk at times, measured risk, because we did really dangerous things. We did really important things, and vice versa. We did things that were completely mundane and administrative and completely unimportant, like, oh my gosh, how are we helping national security or global peace and stability right now? We're not. We're like, you know, whatever, doing paperwork or something that's just duplicative or something. Uh, and merging all these diverse things because we need it all, right? We might not see or appreciate it in the big picture, but we need it all. So anyway, that's
So,
if that
so in a
helps at all.
way, yeah, yeah. So because in a way, and again, I have to tell you, like I said in the beginning, we do these interviews with people. We talk about creativity and creative leadership, and then I hear things I want to hear. I think because I go like, see, there you go. Because well, I'll tell you because one of the patterns that we've been seeing is that people who are creative leaders um, and see themselves as they are also disruptors, but they
Yeah.
tend to have a background that you know made them slightly different or a little bit outsiders,
Yeah.
or or had them kind of. And I hear that in your story, but I hear it in your father's story too. People who had to adapt to situations because
Yeah.
and being really adaptable, but also being able to see things from different points of view because like yourself, you have different lenses to see the world in, if you will. So which makes you better equipped to be empathetic, to understand people's point of view because you had
Mhm.
to see other people's point of view all the time. And
Sure.
so I think so maybe that's a and so I was the pirate. I wrote it down by the way. So that's very nice kind of a way of framing that, being the pirate, but in a positive way. So it's not like, and that's the difficult part a little bit of creative leaders, because leadership is also about other people, taking other people with you and being able to create this sort of an environment and a space where other people can be pirates too, if you will, instead of you
Yep.
just being pirate. Everybody goes like, this person is dangerous and crazy. We don't like him. You have to obviously, right? So how do
Also,
you?
yeah.
So how do
Also
you be? How are
explaining
you?
that.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Morgan.
I was just say also explaining that role's importance. It's not just
Yeah,
doing things outside for the sake of it.
yeah, and taking people
And
along with you.
Mhm.
that's I love your framing of that, Arnie, because that explains the job. That's what, I don't know, 3 jobs ago. I was the founder and the chief learning officer for the Sobrowski Design Studio here at
Mhm.
Naval Postgraduate School. And
Wow.
it's interesting because it was not my day job. My day job was to do research for the Navy, in supercomputing, and they're classified and software development, blah, blah, blah. And it was absolutely, compelling, relevant stuff. Uh, but talk about creating a space. I took a conference room that was completely not just boring, it was like insultingly overdone. Of the room that we had, 25% of it was this monstrosity of cables and wires and a dusty PC that no one used. We paid all this money for big plasma screens that no one used. And I basically completely redid it into this, what I call design studio. And it was honestly as much of a concept as it was a physical place. Um, so number one, I simplified it greatly. I took out this big monstrosity to simply give us more room because real estate's always at a premium. Number two, when I took these big plasma screens off the wall, there were these gigantic gaping holes. Oh, okay, that's easy. We just patched them. Oh, no, we can't do that. We had to go through the government.
Hmm.
Unbelievably bureaucratic, frustrating. I needed to pay over, I think they said $100,000 and not only give them the money up front months in advance, but they would tell me the day that it had to be turned in, whether or not it got approved. And if it didn't get approved to be fixed, then I'd lose it altogether. It's like we had these. This is what people go through living in the government, and this is why Elon Musk is he's they've Doge has witnessed all these things, and on one level they're absolutely right. It's horrific, some of the stuff we do, and the rules that we come up with, and the lack of design thinking and empathy and figuring out, starting at the end and working backwards and
Hmm.
deconstructing first principles, the whole thing, right? I've got plenty of larger issues with Elon Musk and Doge, but we don't have to go there. Um, but I understand. I'm empathetic to
Yeah,
to
it's quite
what's
an interesting
witnessed.
point. It's actually an interesting point because it's easy to dismiss it all.
Mhm.
And I actually been thinking about this quite a bit. Obviously, I'm on the other side of the Atlantic, but it's still, I mean, it's our daily news as well. Well, less so now. Actually, Elon obviously is doing other things, but this idea of all these rules and all. I mean,
Right.
it's the same with most if not all governments, at least to my experience,
Sure.
all organizations, all corporates have to say. I mean, I remember a similar situation where in sort of a small kind of on a smaller scale that I wanted to do a creative workshop at this big company, and I was assigned this space, and the tables were kind of in this U shape because they usually sit down and they would have like their PowerPoint presentation. And I said, well, because it's a creative workshop, so I don't want people to sit and have a meeting. So can we take the tables out? And they said, no, we can't
Yeah.
take the tables out. I said, of
Oh,
course you
yeah.
can take the tables out. No, no, he said because the wires are kind of into, they're integral to the
Oh,
tables. They're
ingrained. Yeah.
in, yeah, they're integrated into the tables, into the floors. So it's going to cost you 2,000 euros to, because we have to have this other department come in and blah, blah, blah. It was like,
Right.
okay, forget about it. I'll just take out the chairs. And then because then they'll sit on tables, it's fine. But this
Right.
idea of these ridiculous rules that were made up for probably good reasons to start with,
Right.
right? And then we just forgot. And
And it got bastardized and it morphed, or no, let me use a more metastasized. I
Mhm.
literally like a cancer, and
Yeah.
we got way far away from where we needed to be, which was, yes, organization, and we're working for the public, so you've got to document things. I get that. There's got to be, and we need to be fair and equitable and just. You can't just, and so filling out forms, I get it. There's a reason, but my goodness, we let it metastasize. So we created this. So we turned. So we had these big gaping walls. What would I do? That's when I found graphic arts. I was never good at
ah,
graphic anything. I'm like not talented, but there was a confluence of multiple things coming together. I had tried Adobe products before. We had kids. I was into photography. I had tried Photoshop. It was too complicated, and so it was a confluence of software becoming available. I use the Affinity products that are main competitors, super much simpler and yet and a much nicer interface design, um, and the need to not only do things professionally in my day-to-day work stuff to story tell, right?
Mhm.
But also I needed a way to cover these holes. So I started putting up posters, and I can share a picture with you later on. Uh, I ended up creating. I became a curator of not just and these posters sometimes were random, what's the right word, studies on topics like polarity management, interagency, or entrepreneurial agency is what I called it, which is entrepreneurship, but within a
Mm-hmm.
system like a government, and having agency to do things, the very thing we don't have. Uh, Treaties on Steve Jobs, etc. And it was also an opportunity to show off our work because when we would host an event or help people participate in something, I'd create a poster and then we started signing it and that would go up. So it's become a museum. So it's like the coolest room at NPS now, I've been told. I'm obviously the proud father of it, but I've been told. And even though I don't work there anymore, they still kept it intact. No one has changed it.
Mm.
So, but let me get to the real just uh, juxtaposition of what had happened there. This room, this boring conference room, became so much more. We call it. It was two things. It was a venture capital firm where people would bring us their crazy idea and they would need funding or they would just need a connection. And remember, this is a university. It's the US military's premier graduate university. So we had all of our military services and, excuse me, 50 international countries there with young people about 10 years into their career. So they were in their, let's say 30s. The average age is probably like 32 or something. And it was a great, it was like a river delta with all this sediment of experience building up, and you could form things with it. And just the natural flow of the river, you could do things by just sticking your finger in the sand and watching what would happen. It would just happen naturally. You didn't even have to do anything because there's all this rich flow that's happening, exchanging ideas. It was therapeutic. For those of us who are in the Navy, standing duty on a ship in the middle of the ocean at 3 a.m., in the middle of nowhere, and you're thinking all these ideas about how do I improve things or my career or my personal life, whatever. And at this university, it was a great opportunity for all these things to be dissected and reflected on. And so when people in a business sense had some great idea or a way to improve something that they were working on, we were there for that. And the second thing we were there for was as an ICU, an intensive care unit. In fact, I'll even go further. It was a NICU, a neonatal intensive care unit, where people bring us their baby that's on its deathbed, baby of an idea, and we have to resuscitate it. And we have to bring this baby, help it mature to a point so it can at least live on its own and breathe on its own.
Mhm.
And we can't see it there through adulthood, but if we can just get this thing so it's self-sustaining, yay. And we were also there for the parents, the Marine Corps captain, the Army colonel, whoever it might be, who came to us with their baby of an idea and had their head lopped off because they dared challenge the bureaucracy or come up with a new idea
Mhm.
uh, for this great idea. And I'll finish with this anecdote. In this room, it's got three walls, and then the fourth wall is entirely windows, so it's very bright, kind of like here on a beautiful California day. And like any good hotel room, when it's super bright and people, especially when you have international visitors, you have to have blackout curtains because someone might be sleeping in the middle of the day or just wants to sleep in. You can't just have normal curtains. You've got to have a blackout curtain to keep the sun out. Well, for us in education, as you guys know, especially, maybe not so much now, but when you're using an overhead projector, you need every lumen of light to not be there because the kids in the back of the room can barely see what it is you're scribbling up on the screen or whatever. So it's got this blackout screen. What I tell people though is that we actually use that room for interviews, for job interviews on innovation. And the reason we have that blackout screen is not because of the lighting and educate, that we're in a university. It's because I need you to disrobe, because I need to see the scars on your back when you came up with your idea and you brought it to your boss or your organization, especially as a young person. Hey, I think I've got a better way. And you had your head taken off. You have the scars on your back to show I actually tried something. And maybe you didn't persevere. Maybe you barely survived it. That's the people I want to, those are the people I want to seek. Those are the people I want to help, uh, because we need them on so many levels. Yes, sure, whatever the great idea is, fantastic. But that's the 1%. The other 99% are failing, which is a good thing we should embrace, which we don't in the military because
Mhm.
we're very um, uh, zero defect mentality, which is understandable in warfare. You cannot lose on the battlefield. Yet, because we're in an academic environment and everyone in the military understands this is why we have training, you have got to fail here, which is why I loved research. When I was at the supercomputing center, my edict to the team was, I need you failing 90% of the time because we cannot fail out there in the real world. I need you to fail here. And that was my job as the
Hmm.
leader. Getting back to your point, Arnie, earlier, your
Hmm.
inquisition,
Yeah.
your inquiry was creating this environment to make it safe to fail. That to the point, not just make it safe, we actually would celebrate it. We have an exercise we call the lid exercise we use with our international a follow-on job. We were basically the schoolhouse for our embassies overseas, and the ambassadors work with their host nations, and they send these are second and third world countries, and they would send their officials to us here in Monterey to basically in a 2 or 4 week program get an executive MBA like very quick and very smash down. And one of the most effective tools or classes that we had was this exercise where we would tease out all these issues around change management and um, teamwork and leadership and all that. And one of the aspects was celebrating failure, which for military people is very counterintuitive. And
Hmm.
yet, these people, because of their seniority, they're mid to very senior people, um, absolutely understood right away and appreciated it, but we never talk about it because we're too scared or our system does not allow for it, which is harkens back to witchcraft and black magic. Our system, the one I was in on my ship, it wasn't ready for that. There was no avenue to experiment or say it's okay.
Hmm.
So anyway,
Yeah.
just I'm just trying to tie that together there.
Yeah. Well, actually, you just explained to me what the, how a military person gets to this, the point that that you embrace design thinking and this kind of iterative way of learning, because you just said, it was very clear to me, you have to fail here because it's a
Mhm.
life and death situation out there, whereas for
Yeah.
a lot of companies, it's not
Yeah.
life and death at all. So actually, it makes now I'm thinking, well, yeah. And in a way, if I think about it, I mean, so we are kind of, with Future Skills Academy, we are focused on what we call, well, what you might call soft skills, but we try to kind of rebrand them to power skills. But soft skills and hard skills, they came from U.S. military, the language. It's with acknowledging that yes, you have hard skills. You need to kind of work with materials and kind of you need engineers, but you also need soft skills. They're just as important. It's just that the word soft started to mean something different. But anyway, but the
Yeah.
essence was it came from the military with its acknowledgement of, yeah, we need both of these things. So, and soft skills are about understanding and empathy and, trying things, falling down, because we learn to walk, by falling down. Everything we learn is, by failure. So in a way, it kind of makes perfect sense. But it's interesting how a system somehow, and this is the same with all these, also corporate system, but any organizational system, that
Mhm.
somehow the system starts to kind of push out these kind of
Yeah.
things that, these what could be seen as a failure or sort of an enemy of
Right.
efficiency or effectiveness or right. And that's a
So I got this exercise again, reflecting on the fact that we're just, an hour south of Silicon Valley, depending on how you drive it. This exercise I actually learned at my daughter's all-girl school environment field trip up in the Redwoods, the
Mhm.
same exact location. In fact, that same day having teams there from Apple, Google, Facebook, Amazon, everybody, Netflix, to learn these rules. And I was able to take these things that I learned and bring them into the military, or at least my little sliver of what I was doing for executive education, for international education, for our own forces, to think, to quote unquote, think outside the box. Like, how do you get there? How do you, so we have this course on innovation, right? So the first thing we do is we draw the difference. What's the difference between invention and innovation? Invention creates things, but innovation changes habits. And innovation is something that's compelling, relevant, sustainable, and it leads to a competitive advantage. It's super hard, especially when you're inside a system, for us, a bureaucracy, a government that inherently has rules. I'm the first person to hate the rules. I'm also the first person to understand you have to have them. And because they create structure for many reasons. And it's this appreciation where not just appreciation, but you have to, and this is where the polarity management comes in, you have to understand, empathetically understand the other side and understand where that person's coming from,
Mhm.
right? Just like we do in design thinking, the wallet exercise from Stanford. I went to design school years ago, and when you don't design, the trick is you first design your own wallet, and then you actually design it for your partner, and you go through this review process and prototyping, right, to teach about design thinking, and which was a wonderful visceral way to do it. And we need so much more of this, and it's been a challenge to convince, year to year, decade to decade, the military that we should be doing more of this. Because like everything in life, there's internal politics and people come and go and leadership. Some people get it, some people don't. Some people feel threatened, right? Like my executive officer. Other people embrace it. And you do what you can along the way to make things better.
Mhm.
Um, so so I feel blessed that I've been in this cauldron,
Mm.
river delta of Silicon Valley, and we didn't talk about it much, but empowering young women and understanding a lot, issues around equity and balance and belonging, and and fusing it into boring government stuff that's there to help build global peace and stability. That to me is what we're all after. That's what I'm after, is global peace and stability. And then how might we get there best?
Yeah. And something that's really standing out to me is maybe how powerful the role of the physical space may have been, right? Because you're talking about all of these high level things, right? Being able to understand the other side with empathy, um, being able to have this incubator or this NICU where things can be brought back to their full living potential, and being able to care for the people with the scars on their back, right? And
Yep.
if you had been going around within the organization and say, "Yeah, hi, I'm Warren. I'll do all these things," it's almost like or how I'm envisioning it in my mind is, okay, you're trying to come a part of that system in a new way, right? And maybe disrupting, or but by having a physical space, it was almost, okay, we've got our system over here on the right, and then you've got this little really interesting cauldron of of converging energy and ideas and experience. And so let me just step into this space for a minute and be outside of this already existing structure. And I think that I've also done some research and have my own experience with kind of these special spaces. And I think that that's a really beautiful example of how, yeah, how you're able to do these really amazing things. You said the space is still being used and celebrated in the same way, and that's a
Yeah.
huge, yeah, huge.
People would go there, and it's ironic because even the president of the university, uh, who was a very dyed in the wool, follow the rules, classic type of thinker and doer. Uh, when we had guests, when we had VIPs, or whatever the occasion was, when people needed to think outside the box, That was the room they needed to go to. And I say that it's not like they were innovative or they were, outside the box thinkers. No, some of them hated that notion. It was counterintuitive. It was like my XO, it was threatening, but they just knew there was, because we had tried every other way, and now we needed to, have this new approach. And that's why it was a struggle to basically fly this thing under the radar. This was not blessed. This was not approved. This was not, I didn't even ask for it. I just did it. A lot of it just kind of organically grew. I, didn't
Mhm.
imagine all of this in the beginning. Um, but we need, we call it a skunk works, it's just like in the beginning of Top Gun 2 when Tom Cruise is
Mhm.
flying the airplane. That's a real skunk works we have in America. We have a couple of them where you go think about these crazy ideas and, you make rocket ships and whatever. Um, and so I was just bringing this to, you know, uh, young people, and that's another big a feature of this, especially in bureaucracies and governments. People tend to be older. The average age tends to be older, and not only having the young the young students, I think average age 32. I'm talking about high school and college age kids. So we had internship programs, typically based around STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, but very broad based. And again, it was this wonderful opportunity to converge, to bring together, to catalyze the wisdom of more senior people and the innocent exploration of young people and everybody in between, and setting up a framework to show them it's okay. This is how you do it. It's okay to fail. And senior people, you need to have more grace. The young people have no idea. They're scared. Everyone's complaining about Gen Z and millennials, and they don't do this, and they don't have a work ethic or whatever it might be. Okay, here's your opportunity. Help them. Help them. And likewise, young people, you know, people have so many stories to tell that can help you be successful. One thing we're very proud of is something we called, um, what was it called? Something in polka dots, PhDs in polka dots.
Uh,
And we would pull the women who were running research centers within the university specifically and match them up with our young people, especially young women, to talk about their research, right? And so ostensibly, this was a brown bag. Like it was just, oh, come together every Tuesday, whatever, you can show up.
Mhm.
It was only supposed to be a whatever 45-minute thing. You come, you know, someone presents something like any brown bag, right? Chit chat, and then, oh, ask some questions. Okay, thank you very much. Go.
Mhm.
We would literally have to pull people apart after 2 or 3 hours because they would hear the stories of, sure, whatever interesting, I'm making a laser gun, whatever it is that they did. And I don't even mean to dismiss that. We do some phenomenal research that's really helping advance global peace and stability. Yay. The stories from the women became PhDs who are now running their own research labs and what they had to go through to get there were just so amazing that what they had gone through in positive and very negative senses, and having the young people, not just young women, but young men and women, understand who had gone before them and what it took to get there and what the environment was like. It's certainly better, and what it's still like, and to help them be successful as they are going through high school, college, postdoc, and they're, um, in this sense, academic settings, but also just in work settings, and how to set yourself up for success and what to look for. And then from that, how might we make this better for everybody so we can engage the entire workforce? And so anyway, that's a whole nother aspect that, again, to your point, Morgan, it was fantastic having a place that we could call our own um, for the time that we had it. And and be able to have the run these offshoot programs that were all just feeding in and helping support and making it, more and more
Mm.
impactful.
Mhm.
Do you miss it?
I do. Yeah,
I can
I
tell.
do.
Okay,
It's
when you're talking about it, you light up. You are
yeah,
everything. It's you're so proud of that, but you had so much. It was so meaningful as well.
yeah, yeah.
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 Yeah, and it was yes, and it's also nice because I brought that spirit and that learned experience to the next place I went, which was another place on the campus, but actually completely divorced of the university. It
Mhm.
just happened to be. This is a good example of where what government can do. It was another entity in the government uh, that was not looking to do anything like that per se. They were teaching their people, and to have that opportunity in the swirl of like a river, again, a river delta, all of us moving around, that I was able to bring that to another place
Mhm.
and completely help overturn, not overturn, so strong a word, but really help another program flourish in ways it had never imagined, and figure out the constraints and work within it, and more importantly, I think, find those opportunities to race ahead.
Mhm.
One of the common, speaking of grandfather, father, myself as a dad, three daughters, I've told them, have you guys seen the movie Last of the Mohicans from ages ago, Daniel Day-Lewis?
Yeah, 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 yeah. Long time ago.
Very
Yeah.
fuzzy in my memory, but it's yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a scene in it where the main protagonist, goes up to a fort in upstate New York, and they have to get a message out uh, to their rebel forces. And the British are basically choking and getting closer and closer. And actually, not the British, it's the French. So the French and the British are fighting, but the Americans are caught in the middle of all this. Anyway, they have to send a messenger out, and Daniel Day-Lewis, the main protagonist, who's from Kentucky, uh, it's kind of like a Daniel Boone type of figure. He's got this long rifle, and while they're talking about things, what they did was they got the messenger set up. It was literally a message strapped to his back, and he had to go running. But the Indians were going to try and kill him as he's running through, and he would stand up there at the top, and they got all these, I don't know, three or four rifles ready, and then they tell the guy go, and he would follow him, and then pick off the people, the bad people who are trying to kill him on the, as he's racing through this to get the message to the other forces about, they're under siege or whatever. And that to me is very much the job of a
Mm.
father, of a
Mhm.
protector, of a leader, where you need your team to run as fast as they can. And as the leader, your job is not to be in there like programming stuff or making, the bread mix with everybody else. Just sure, you can do that, or you might have your own idea of how to bake a cake, that's new and, interesting. As the leader, you need to be helping your team be successful, and whatever it is to help build them up or protect them from other things that could get in their way, to help them lower those barriers so that they could run as fast as they can on behalf of the business or organization, as well as themselves, personally and professionally, etc.
Mhm.
Totally. Yeah. I
And having
had
that,
a sorry,
go ahead.
you go.
Yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yep.
I was
No,
going to
I
say
had a you
having
have a
that.
question.
No,
I have a story. You have a question. So you're
well, it wasn't a question. It was more
Oh.
just like having that strategic oversight to see ahead of time. Okay, these are going to be the problems that come along the way. So I'm going to, as a leader, clear your path so that you can keep running. Um, takes you have to have had experience as a runner, but then also having the
Yeah,
bigger, higher level picture. And like you said, also your role as a father. And but when you were talking about, when I was thinking of the strategy and the higher level, it was very clear also from your father's story and your grandfather's story that they both also very clearly saw the bigger level of things. And
right.
yeah, so it was
Yeah,
more
exactly.
observation than a question, Arna.
Yeah. Yeah. No, 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 but it's a very good point. Yeah, exactly. No, I just kind of, it just reminded me of things that I go, oh yeah, exactly. That this is what I've experienced as well, both with being a leader and having leaders, but also actually, so I used to work at a design agency, and I was the creative director, and we had a sort of the creative wing, and we had the accounts people wing basically, and it was literally it was like a little hallway and a door in between, and we had to do these competitions to get a project, and there was a usually very tight deadline, and there was a client, and we need to get that project, and so the accounts people were always really eager to know what the creatives were doing, and it was mainly my job to keep the accounts people out and not have them in, because and they would kind of sneak in every now and then, go, what are you doing? And we would be watching movies or playing football or
Right, right,
something,
right.
and they were like, you're not even working. And we were like, no, that's part of the creativity. No, let us do this. We have to play. Don't worry. Go out, go away, go away. But and the other thing is that when I was with my previous company, in the beginning, we had a big team, and I would facilitate creative sessions and workshops around the world. And sometimes, it's not always perfect. Sometimes it didn't work, or people didn't like me, or I made a mistake or something. We're only human. And then I would come back to my team, and I remember having this kind of this warm bath, instead of people going, what went wrong? And oh, now the client is, they would like, oh yeah, remember that happened to me too the other time. We remember that. Come, let's have a coffee and we'll talk about this. This kind of this, you have to go out there, and it's vulnerable. You have to do these things, and but here you're safe and it's okay, and that feeling of there's a feeling of being part of something, part of a team that supports you, not just the
Yeah.
leader, but also the rest of the team. There's a culture of people, they support you. No matter what's happening, they listen to you. They don't judge you. They listen and they help you, and that's so
And
rewarding.
yes, and it's also something I've learned is that that's counterintuitive. It's also um, can be what's the opposite of rewarding? Like demeaning, right? Um, One of the most important functions I provide in my family is unplugging the toilet. It's disgusting. Why did it
Yeah.
happen? Did it happen from glorious reasons, or I was inventing the cure to cancer and I plugged up the toilet? No, it's because there's poop in toilet paper. And for whatever reason, it's like, that's what you do. That's what I do as dad.
Oh yeah.
And you do these things that you've learned over time. It's not just because other people don't want to do it. You know where you have to fill in. And this is where I try for these advanced discussions and innovation. We think about Steve Jobs, right? Apple, and oh my gosh, all this wealth. They're like one of the biggest companies in the world. How sexy. I have an iPhone. It's so sexy. It's so well made. It's perfect, right? And that's our understanding. And this is our daily interaction with it, right? And yet it's not like that. It's extremely threatening. And again, especially when you're within a system. Now, God bless Steve Jobs and Apple. He, as the boss, he reached down and was able to pull up Tony Fadell, the inventor of the iPod, and create a space, challenge them, etc. All the folklore stories about it, um, or how things happen accidentally, etc. And so that's one thing I'm trying to prepare leaders for. It's not this glamorous, oh, I'm going to become wealthy, or I get the executive suite type of thing. No, if you're doing it right, it can get whatever the negative word is, dirty, or not dirty in a mean sense, but I mean, you've got to do things and understand what the team needs. And guess what? You're the
Yeah.
boss, so you're laying yourself down so that they can
Yeah.
be successful or look good, right?
So yeah,
Um,
I talk
yeah,
about this in the way, and it's not the right words either. But for me, I talk about it as being adults, and I mean
yeah,
with that, what I mean is that you're an adult. You know what needs to be done. An adult goes and unplugs the toilet.
Right.
That's what you do. You don't go like, I haven't seen that.
Right. Right.
My kids will go like, nah, did anybody
Yep.
see me
Yeah.
see this? No. Okay.
Right.
Right. But, as an adult, you see it, even if you're alone, that's the job you need to do. You have to do the work. And,
Right.
and also the
And
other
remove
thing,
the ego. Right.
remove the ego, and also set an example where, because and again, I know adult is not the right word for it, but to me it makes sense that, for instance, if I work with people, I want them to be adults in the sense that if they make a mistake, they tell me, because the worst thing you can do is not tell me. And
Mhm.
then, and then we find out too late. But if you make a mistake,
Right.
you say, hey, something went wrong. I made a mistake, or something. That's fine, because we're all people. It's all okay. But it's something that it's connected to what you're saying.
And
You know,
and
and
it's so funny, Arnie. I'm giggling because you say that so casually, right? Which I totally respect, and of course I completely agree. And that's because you have been, I would imagine, you've been in situations because you've been the boss. You can set that tone. You set that ecosystem, the environment, so that people know that it's okay. Tell Arnie the truth. I totally screwed up, whatever, right? And in large organizations, it's completely the opposite. You're scared to
Mhm.
tell the boss, or shame on that boss or the entire hierarchy that has set up that ecosystem so that people are fearful or don't want to say. And that is something that's very visceral in this exercise I do, especially with military people, because we understand you. So the classic example is changing the oil in the helicopter before you go on the mission to save the hostages. It's all about checklists, right? So to do this, do this, do this. And it, we have got to rely on the most junior person to go check the oil level or to check the purity of the oil, because we cannot have mission failure. We're all about mission accomplishment. That it's not money, it's not saving your life. None of that matters. It's about accomplishing the mission, and everything else will fall into place. And so that's a very visceral point I make with the military people who understand that importance and understand how crucial it is to properly set up that environment, because you need that scared junior person who who is in that very powerful position, because we give a lot of responsibility early on to say, you know what, boss, I didn't do this. And if we have to scrub the mission or come up with something else, that's fine. Yes, we'll be angry. We can yell about it later, but we will save ourselves to come back and come up with another way or accomplish the mission in another way. And
Yeah,
that is absolutely crucial, especially in the military.
yeah. And what is so hard, if you look at this, I've seen lots of these situations where a junior person would make a big mistake, and then that junior person would lose their job, where actually the one person who would never make that mistake again would be that junior person. So it's also right. I've seen examples of this where we go like, you fired the one person and now you have to micromanage the next person because you're scared because now there's a new person coming in. And so this allowing to learn. So because the biggest mistake you can make is not learning from your mistakes. That's the
Sure.
whole point. And of course, you can make crucial mistakes that you should not be able to. And to your point, yeah, yell later. And but it's such a big thing. This learning. I think it's one of the. Sorry, I'm giving you a thumbs up. I don't know why. It's such a big thing because it's the. I think it's the sort of the foundational, or the core problem that we have in not just in government, but in every business right now. But isn't it so? I mean, because it came from somewhere, and it might be really. Maybe it's just a really human thing to do, to create these hierarchies and these cultures of fear in a way, because hasn't it been like that forever, since at least since the Industrial Revolution. That's what
Yep.
we set up, right? I mean, aren't we still in the same system that we set up, in the Industrial Revolution, these pyramids of power, where everybody else is just a resource and afraid to anger the boss. And so your change management. So maybe so these are two things. One is I'd love to hear your vision on this, but also because you talked about change management and changing behavior and changing culture. Um, because how would you go about that? How would you do it in such a system? Besides, obviously being the pirate and creating a little pirate ship, your design studio. To me, it's a pirate ship now, but anyway, a design studio.
Yeah.
So you create that, and I love that, and it has probably change people's lives, obviously, because you showed them an option. To me, that's creative leadership. You show them an option that they didn't even know it was possible, and you said, "Hey, these are sort of I'm going to stretch the boundaries of what you thought where the boundaries were, but they're not here. They're there. We can do
Mm,
these things. We can have these conversations. We can
mm,
kind of
mm,
create
mm.
this kind of space." Right? That's creative leadership. But at the same time, how are we, maybe as humans, maybe it's a bigger question. Do we move on? Because what we're seeing right now, we just mentioned Elon Musk, but the kind of companies these kind of people are setting up are,
Mhm.
they basically, they are dehumanizing businesses completely, because it's not about people. It's actually they're in their way, basically. If you can fire them, that's great. The more you can fire, the more people you can. But what if business isn't, or if these systems are not for people? If they're not for people or not about people, what are they for? Right? So these are a lot of questions,
Well,
but
power and money.
well, yeah, but how? So
I
yeah,
mean,
but for sure, but for only a few
right,
people, we are more. Where
right,
there are more of us.
right,
So
right, right, right.
we can take them. They're just like there's only 10 of them now, I think, who have all the money.
Yeah. Um, it- well, and this is where it was, again, such a blessing to be so unusually involved in education, both from an active duty military perspective, and then following on as a research
Mm,
faculty and a civilian employee.
Mhm.
Um, the power of education, right? Training the trainers, where you teach other people, uh, you have to come up with a very good, a compelling, relevant, sustainable curriculum, and go through a process where you select the most poignant lessons and you string them together so one supports the next, and not and so if you do it right, you not only make a huge impact with the people there. Of course, you'd want to have in the ecosystem you guys live in that society, or for us, the military or the Navy, uh, have them go out and propagate and proselytize, these newfound insights about trust and, leadership, etc. The most Interestingly, the most profound, the way I knew we were being successful. Of course, we have the class, the surveys afterwards on a scale of 1 to 10. How much did you get from this? And, do you have anything to say? All the usual stuff we have in education, right? Um, that didn't hold a candle to what I found to be the most successful, or the most powerful clarifying metric for how well we were doing as educators, and that was the number of people who would cry in the class.
mm,
We had some classes where I remember there was a woman, and this woman was quite uh, senior in rank, and I found her sobbing on a staircase at one point, and it's because we were talking about things that were so visceral to her in a leadership sense, in a profound way. It transcended work, or anything to do with service, public service, the Navy. It had to do with her mother and things that she was going through with her mother, or reflecting. I think her mother was ill or maybe had just recently passed. And it was a very centering, powerful moment that we just I sat with her and we sat in the moment, even though we were, people were trying to get back to class and all that. And so again, as this, I was the executive director of this outfit and the schoolhouse, and you have to see these moments and appreciate and take them for what they are, uh, and react accordingly. In a similar class, we had a man who was again a mid to senior tier naval officer. He was stationed in Japan, and he was a husband and a father. And he was a very, type A personality, rah rah, hard exterior, hard to get to type of person. But whatever, it's the military, it happens. Fine, it's just how we operate. Great. He broke down at one point because again, the topics and the subjects and the manner we were going about, discussing it and sharing stories and assessments we would do. And so everyone had numbers and colors on their name tag in front of them. So we taught the students how to immediately understand, oh, Arnie is a this and a Morgan is a that. So we could immediately appreciate where you're coming from, and no one's right or wrong. It's just, this is your preferences or whatever. Um, and he also was going through this massive career and life reflection, and it turns out he was also separate from his family because of he was on cruise, and then he had to go to different schools, so he hadn't seen them for a while, so understandably he was missing them in an unusually profound way. And what we were talking about with work that seemed, or that could come across to someone like that as so perfunctory or obvious or sure, or, he would belittle it. Boy, oh boy, did it hit him like a ton of bricks. And as an educator, you guys know this, as an educator, when you have those moments, they're so precious.
Yeah.
And so we stopped what we were doing. This is like in the middle of some, class where, we moved on to the next unit to talk about this because it's this learning moment, right? And we wanted everybody, we wanted to honor what he was going through and honor this moment and have everyone reflect, because we all knew each other at this point, for better or for worse. And anyway, and so having those opportunities um, were gifts to
Yeah.
see, and that's how, as I go in through different programs as we go on, some people who this hasn't happened yet, or if I'm just starting out somewhere, they're looking at me like, what? You don't just follow the surveys and you got a 7.9 and, blah, blah, whatever the usual thing is. You're looking for
Yeah.
people, or not looking for, you're, you're, you're waiting for people to break down, and that's your measure of success. Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
So,
Yeah. That's the reason why I kind of really love education, because the impact you make is from human to human,
Yeah.
and it's not from, not as a human to a system, but it's this really, almost one-on-one kind of impact that you can see, you can say. So this is why I couldn't get out of, because I tried after a while. I don't want to do training or education anymore. But then someone asked me, what were the moments that he said, when your heart made a leap? And
Mm.
I thought about it like, oh yeah, those are exactly the moments that you're describing. Like, okay, yeah, I think this is what I want to do. So
yeah,
yeah, beautiful. Yeah,
Yeah. And I think, it's not just about making them cry, right? You can make people cry for a multitude of
right,
reasons.
right.
But it's about piercing that shell and seeing everything
yeah,
cascading into place and just integrating. And especially in a system, um, maybe rigid is the word I want to use from my outsider's perspective. But as a system is rigid, as the military, you don't always have the space to allow that
Right.
that personal. Yeah.
Yep.
So
yeah.
yeah.
It can be as
That
simple as
expression.
seeing sort of the
Yeah.
penny drop. I mean, it can be just as simple as someone saying, oh, wait, that really helps me. Sometimes I just show them a simple tool,
Yeah.
it can be something like, I mean, the other day I just showed people something like stakeholder mapping. It's very simple, kind of rings of influence, very basic design thinking tool, or not even design thinking tool, by the way, it's just a simple tool that's been around forever. And I just never thought about it. And I just showed it, and they said, "Oh, I've never thought about this. This makes so much difference to my project." Now all of a sudden I understand sort
Yeah,
of how to kind of deal with this kind of all these stakeholders, and it's just that moment is you give something to someone again. So education is very close to kind of creative leadership in my sense, because you show people options that they haven't considered or they didn't know,
right.
and you give them other, and obviously you have different kinds of education or going about that. But it is the fundamentally it is about showing people things they didn't know and they didn't consider, and you say, hey, here's a new option for you, and then the best thing is when it lands and people are like, oh yeah, or oh, now it makes sense, I never got that right,
Yeah.
oh, this is it.
Yes, and I'd even take it a step further. You can't do this all the time because sometimes you just simply have
Sure,
to
of
tell
course.
people like two plus two is four, whatever, right?
Sure.
So there are these different gradations, when you go from training to education, and then what? And that next what I think is culture, right? It's how you're doing things. To Morgan's point earlier, you're right. It's not about, we would never try and make people cry. It's the self-discovery that like
Yeah.
bubbles up uncontrollably. And understandably, again, in a big system, you feel like a robot, especially after years. These are mid to late career people, and they just are robotic, or we're all taught to look a certain way and don't show emotions, or whatever the case may be. And if you construct your program successfully and powerfully and profoundly, these you help your students grow in phenomenal ways. One of the parts of the exercise we would do, especially early on, is the foundation of appreciative inquiry, which is tell me something you're proud about. And we would even take it a step further, not just have everyone think about it and announce it. We actually would partner people up who, of course, don't know each other. They're from different continents, languages, tribes, religions, etc. So massive mixing, but we had no time because we only have 2 to 4 weeks with these folks who are coming in from all over the world. Um, and we would teach them how to interview the other person to excavate. I need you to excavate what makes them feel proud. What was it that happened? What were the circumstances? Who else was involved? And what was really going on, right? The example I use to try, because everyone's looking at me strange because they're, especially after military training for 10, 20 years, you're just told, do it this way, this way. Here's the 13 steps to change out an engine, whatever. Um, is, oh, I saved my father's life. Oh, wow, that's interesting. Tell me more. Well, he was choking one day, and I got a toothpick, and I was able to clear his airway. Wow. Yes, and tell me more. And basically, and it's the five, the Japanese, what's it
Five
called?
whys.
The
The
five
five
whys,
whys,
right? And
yeah.
dig
Yeah.
that Toyota started, right? And you
Yeah.
Yeah.
dig, 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 and basically walk them through, not just why it happened, but how are you able to be successful? Well, what it comes down to was mom, who no one thinks about getting toothpicks unless you actually care about that it or
Uh-huh.
about toothpicks that much, or you have a party and you need to use it. It's because the mom in this case was uh, thoughtful enough to go put toothpicks in the utility drawer that we all need, but we never think about until it's too late. And that what the story was really about was honoring all the things that moms do that go unnoticed. And
Mhm.
that's actually how the person was able to save their father's life. It's because what the mother did, not even what they did, because mom thought to get toothpicks. Like normally no one cares, right? And so it's this whole excavation process, and that in the
Oh,
process of that, when we go through people's backgrounds, or we share these experiences, and it's even more powerful when people are coming literally from 5 different continents. I think I've taught something on the order of like 70 different countries. It's not even like you can share, if you're all in the same nation or, you have the same experiences or you're a westernized democracy, you can share the same experiences, vastly different experiences and upbringings, yet you find these common threads. And boy, oh boy, talk about powerful
Yeah.
when everyone can relate to exactly what happened in a scenario.
So how important is storytelling for you?
Oh, it's hugely important. It's like foundationally human, right? It captures empathy. It helps us um, share folklore and pass on. I'm just giving you the
Yeah.
classic definitions, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
But in a bureaucratic sense, coming from a government, I love it because it's just not boring. It's
Uh-huh.
someone, whether it's your own story. So here's a crude Navy saying, what's the difference between a folk tale and a sea story? A sea story begins with, this is a no shitter because it really happened, right? And so, sailors the world over are known for telling, you get to the bar and it's late at night and you're meeting people and you're in some foreign port and oh my gosh, I saw a sea monster, I met a mermaid, whatever. These fantastical stories of things that would happen that really do seem fantastical, like that couldn't have happened, and they really did.
Yeah.
And anyway, so storytelling is um, a
Yeah.
way, certainly in the Navy, that we pass down folklore or teach lessons, be it from the Naval Academy when you're 18 to 22 years old, or you're old and crusty, and we've got all these ceremonies when you cross the equator. I've got them in my bathroom downstairs. You get a certificate when you cross the equator, and there's all this, pomp and circumstance.
Yeah. 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 For
So,
sure. But you
yeah,
turn people into storytellers as well. I mean, we started the conversation where you
right.
told us about how asking people about their father and their mother.
Yeah.
Then you immediately you turn people into storytellers because they're going to tell you a
Yep.
story, right?
Yep.
And which makes creates an emotional connection and et cetera, et cetera. So it's that.
Yeah.
So in a way, I think everything you do and you are a storyteller, obviously,
Mhm.
very clearly, which is so powerful. It's so interesting to hear as well how you use storytelling, but you turn other people into storytellers, and that creates sort of, I think, also the insights and or the reflection and
Hmm.
because it's stories that are so powerful and we tend to forget. It's such an it's a, but it and it's so human. And why do we always keep forgetting these basic human abilities that we have there? So I mean, storytelling has been with us forever. I mean, that's how we
Yeah.
pass on wisdom and knowledge and or warnings or it's through
Yeah.
stories and
Life
somehow
lessons.
we forget. Yeah.
It's so funny just to underscore exactly what you're saying, Arnie. The first in the first hour of the first day that we have our international students in this other program through our embassies, when they show up and they cross the threshold, it's taken a year for them to get to this point. Uh, at least always uh, over half have never even been to America before. So this is a very big deal for them to be here in Monterey, California, in America, and we, the American public, pay for everything. They show up, they're literally getting paid to be there, and the vast majority of them actually um, send the money back home to share with the family because they typically don't come for much. The very first hour, to your point, Arnie, what we do is we pair them up with their neighbor, whoever they're sitting next to, and we want them to do these introductions, like meet the other person, and we're going to go around and do introductions, right? But we don't want you talking about yourself. Meet your person. So there's powerful lessons there, and we don't want you talking about work. Work is boring. Like whatever. I move paper from here to here. I plan the attack. We save the people. Got it. We're all in the military. We're all in the government. We all understand. Got it. Tell me about your family. Tell me about your upbringing. Tell me about your children. Tell me what you've struggled with. And if you don't even want to talk about family, that's fine. The other thing is we have two standbys. Tell me something you're passionate about, and or um, tell me something that's not on your resume. And that's how we get That's
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
to your
So,
point. We never consciously thought about it. That's how we spark the storytelling.
yeah.
Because when everyone, at least in the government, talks about their work, oh, blah blah blah, whatever. I drive a Jeep, I move papers. But when it's heartfelt, I'm passionate. I go to church. Whatever. I play soccer. Um, uh, then you're helping me understand, Arnie, that that's actually what we're doing is we're kicking
Totally.
off, we're resetting the everyone's perspective for the next 2 weeks with that first hour, and it's about storytelling. And we're removing, because we have everything from four-star generals to mid-tier civilian employees from vastly different backgrounds, right? So we've got to get everybody on the same page. There's no uniforms allowed, so we do that helps right there. Um, but the other thing is we need to remove because when we talk too much about work, then issues around importance, like, oh, I command 10,000 people, or I don't have anybody working for me. We need to do our best to um, e make the discussions more equitable and get people, for the most part, on the same balance in order to talk about and address these other things. Of course, everybody's experience comes in, which we love to highlight. But anyway, thank you for bringing that up. That's what I'm
Yeah.
realizing we've been doing this time.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's so I run storytelling courses, um and some people are just naturals and other people don't feel that their stories are boring and they're not interesting.
Yep.
And I ran a session a couple of weeks ago, and there was just some executives sitting around the table, and I had them share stories that were about transitions in their life, not work related, but life transitions. And it was the first lady who started, and she stood up and she talked about this story of being born in Morocco, and there was a wedding, it was all planned, and then she fell in love with this French guy, and and she actually made the decision to cancel the wedding, and she had a dress on, and well, this whole story, and it ended well. And I said to everyone, it's interesting because don't you think that right now the person you knew before the story is a different person that you see standing there right now? I mean,
Mm,
this person changed, right? And they said, yeah, it's a completely different person because all of a sudden they didn't know. They had no clue she was born in Morocco because she lived in Italy. She looked very Italian. And so that story, so to your point, if someone talks about, being passionate about soccer, for instance, that and it might connect someone else to that four-star general might go like, oh, I love soccer too, and there you go. But it's stories and it's lived experience,
yep.
that's the kind of the equalizer. That's what makes people sort of people.
And, and doesn't it always come back to emotions, like deeply
Totally.
held beliefs, right?
Yeah,
That we all share as human beings, right?
exactly.
Fathers, we all have fathers and mothers. We may not know them they might not be here with us. Um, and that's where, I think it's Japanese, the karetsu, right? The Japanese five whys, like digging in, excavating, the appreciative inquiry
Yeah,
interviews.
Mhm.
yeah,
And
exactly.
that's when we find you really get down to, so it's not just playing soccer as an example.
No, of
It's
course.
because you used to do that with your dad, right? Or you would go on
Exactly.
the weekends, or your
Yeah,
family would go, and this feeling of tremendous pride for your team or your country, and so that's oftentimes, this is what we're
totally.
teaching them how to excavate in the first hour of class, to
Yeah,
start drawing this forward. What, tell me more. Like, what's really happening? Dig, dig, dig. And it
yeah.
oftentimes comes down to emotions, not, oh, I love the color of this paper. Like, that's the end story. That has nothing to do
Yeah.
with it, right?
But this
Like I
is
learned
how
with my
you,
EXO.
Yeah.
yeah, this is how you connect people who, even, and we live in a world where sometimes we feel that, you either on one end of the spectrum or the other, you're either for this or, like with Dodge, you're either for it or against it or something. There's no middle ground. And actually, if you talk to people, in the US, obviously Democrats and Republicans, right? So there's this idea that these are, but to your point, if you share stories, we are all humans. We all have, we're all kind of, we all have or had parents. We all had lived experience. We want
Yeah.
safety. We have all basic needs. We're all basically the
Love.
same.
Yep.
We want, exactly. So this idea of that's a big connector. And then you start understanding each other. We're just humans. And actually, we all want to have the same things. We just
Yeah.
don't, we all might have some misunderstandings of miscommunication or different ways to go about it, but we're
Hmm.
basically trying to do the same thing. And I think
Yeah.
storytelling is, I don't know, I think if we talk about what is the big solution, I think I don't know exactly, but I'm pretty sure that becoming better storytellers is part of it.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Um,
I'm thinking of
Morgan.
like myself to be in this, you know, vastly. I don't know if we all need the same basic things. I don't know if we all want the same things in life though. But if I can learn, like, because you mentioned, right, Warren, that you guys take away the uniforms. You say, don't talk about work, right? Like, tell me, let's excavate and really get into these deeper levels. And if I
Mm.
can learn who you are and not what you do, or rather
Yeah.
how you will behave, or the drivers
Yeah.
that move you, even if we want different things in life, I also then know how we can work together, or, okay, well, this is how they operate. So then I will communicate in a different way. And I
Yep.
think always so much more interesting. And like you said, you can find common ground. And yeah, it's just a really powerful exercise. And I love that you guys kick off with that. It's yeah.
Yeah, it's just thank you to you guys who are helping me appreciate. I couldn't even tell you why we did it. We just, it just organically morphed that way, and I think that's exactly what this is getting to, is setting the tone, setting the tone we want to set. Number one, and number two, having this profound moment of personal discovery, etc. Um, so yeah, that thank you. You just
Yeah,
realize I just realized why we're doing it because of storytelling.
cool.
Yeah.
Last question, because
Yeah.
we could talk forever because you're such a great storyteller. And so, what are you looking forward to? What is the thing you really look forward to into the future when you think about the future?
Wow, what a profound question. Um, I'm looking forward to impacting people in a positive way. Um, f having more opportunity to impact people in a positive way. My time here at Department of Agriculture is quickly drawing to a close. I'm in the middle of trying to, find the next lily pad to hop onto. Uh, and I'm just hoping I find the right circumstance because I want to share not what I learned, like, those are just stories, but to help an enterprise or an organization that I believe in be more meaningful or to be successful for sure, and help it excavate its own meaning or to really help deconstruct and revitalize perhaps if perhaps an organization, a business, whatever, an ongoing concern at one point years ago started out great, but for various reasons, um, it's fallen into disrepair. And I hope I can find the opportunity to help people rediscover that and ignite their passions and find a way forward.
Wonderful. Thank you
Yeah.
so much. Thank you for
Yeah,
the
thank you.
So much
inspiration
fun.
and the conversation. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was really
And
cool.
I'd love
And
to know if you guys, I'd love to, I love your questions, by the way, and the conversation. If you see any opportunities for me, I'd love to, travel
yeah,
or go speak or whatever. I'm all ears,
awesome.
not just for employment, but I mean, just opportunities to speak or whatever, because I don't normally get them.
Mm.
Burrow deep into the U.S. government.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so an
Yeah, for sure. I
invitation for
think
you.
well, that is wonderful, and that's a great thought. Um and I think I said um early in the conversation, I talked about reading. I've read quite a few books about people actually with a lot of experience in the military who use the sort of their insights, to write amazing books, so inspirational. And listening to you, I'm thinking you have a book, you have a wonderful book for
Literary.
people.
Yes.
Yeah, for people like us as well,
Mhm.
because from your context, and from your background and what you've had to do to get even just a design studio off
Yeah.
the ground.
Yeah.
I mean, I
Secretly,
Yeah.
well, but
subversively, I guess.
yeah, but those are examples that are so powerful, inspirational, and so needed. Not only today, but it's been such an inspiration for us to kind of learn about these stories, because the world is full of people who want to do these things that they don't know how, and they don't know how to become a pirate.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
somehow, stories from a pirate, uh, we need them. So I would say, write it down. It's amazing. And even
Yeah.
just where you came from. And anyway, yeah. But yes,
Okay. Great.
if we have an opportunity, we'd love to do that. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Like
Okay.
Okay.
how to be a
Thank you so
systemic
much.
how to be a systemic pirate. I think there's a lot of a
Yeah.
lot of energy there also, right? A lot of systems we're crashing into them. We're feeling the limitations. They're groaning and breaking
Yeah.
in real time. And
Yeah.
so many people want to take action, but they have no idea where to start. And you've led a
Yeah.
great life of learning how to navigate and understand these systems, but also take that like subversive action for the greater good. And I think that's
Yeah.
really inspiring. So
Subversive actions
Great.
for the greater good. That's already a good subtitle right there. Yeah.
it is
Well, it
yours,
is.
Lauren. Take it. Yes.
Yeah. That's awesome. That is awesome. All right. Thank you so much, Warren.
Thank you so much.
Hopefully we'll talk soon. Okay.
All right. Sounds good. You guys
Yeah.
take care.
I
Thank
will
you.
let you know when we have where we're going to publish it, right? So obviously we'll let you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd
Yeah.
be great. And I'd love the transcript or whatever when you get a moment, or
Yeah,
just
for
to,
sure.
it
Yeah.
helps
Oh
me
yeah.
recapture because I
Oh
don't get to
yeah.
talk about it. So
Yeah, yeah,
True.
no, totally.
that'd be
We
great.
transcripts, everything nowadays, transcripts are so easy.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
is
Just
like,
automated.
I
Yeah.
think it's already there.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Yeah,
My day, I
technology
do
is
Great.
the
amazing.
transcripts by hand. Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Yep.
me too. Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. All right. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much,
All right, you
Lauren.
guys,
Thank you.
take
Bye.
care.
You
Bye bye.
too. Bye.